Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Would you please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? Remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Peppers, would you grace us with an invocation, please?
Yes, sir. Would you pray with me? Dear Lord, thank you for this day and this opportunity to gather together as a community to do the business of the city. We thank you for those that are here with us, who are here to learn and here to speak, here to give opinions and here to listen. We ask that you would bless the staff that work for this city and all the various roles that they play, keep them safe. And we ask that you would help us to enjoy this wonderful sunny weather that we've been given and remember the importance of community in all that we do. All these things we ask in your name. Amen.
Call to order our April 18th, 2024 council meeting. We'll take consideration to approve tonight's agenda. Are there any changes, additions, deletions? Do you believe we need to add an executive session for real estate and litigation? Is that correct, Mr. Peppers?
Yes, sir.
Any other changes or motions? To approve.
Second.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. Do have some guests and visitors with us this evening. And beginning with first and foremost, we have several new staff members, and we had a reception before our meeting. Hopefully some of you got a chance to say hello, introduce yourselves to them, and I think Mr. Peppers will acknowledge all of them because I think the list is too long for me to remember. So,
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We have a few that couldn't be here with us tonight for other commitments, but I will go through the list of our employees, and if you're a new employee, when I call your name, if you'll just stand. First, Miss Amy Thomas. She is our new Human Resources Coordinator. She is a Etowah High School graduate and decided to ditch the commute and join us here in Canton. She has a background of many years of service with the city of Roswell. Hannah Stringer is our new accountant. She is a graduate of Sequoia High School and Reinhardt University, and she joins us after some time in the local banking industry. Austin Phillips is our building and safety technician. Building and fire safety technician. He's a Creekview High School graduate and Kennesaw State University graduate, and he joins us with prior experience in finance, security, and the local industry. He could not be here with us tonight. Anderson Nations is with us in code enforcement, a Cherokee High School graduate, and he joins us following some time with the Cherokee County Marshal's Office and Control. Larkin Wilson is a police department cadet. He is a Pickens High School graduate and currently attending the Mandate Academy in Austell. So he is not with us this evening, but he is also a member of the Army National Guard. Marty Farrell's our new Chief of Police, and he joins us after a very brief retirement as Chief of Police from the city of Marietta, where he spent his entire career rising through the ranks from officer up to the chief position. Marietta Carlisi is a records technician. She joins us having had a similar role with the Milton Police Department. Richard May joins us with 17 years of prior law enforcement experience, most recently with the Madonna Police Department. He finished an abbreviated field training program on April 9th and was assigned to the C team with Sergeant Lilly. Ariel Hill is utility customer service representative. She is a Laster High graduate and a Canton resident, and she joins us following a decade of sales and retail. Walker Bunch is new with us in the Public Works Department as a Public Works technician and graduated from Cherokee High School, and he joins us after serving with local hardware and supply houses. And then Ashley Hartwig is our theater staff assistant. She earned a degree in theater arts from Valdosta State University. She works with us part-time and at Woodstock Arts part-time, and she is down at Woodstock Arts teaching. So these are some of the new employees that we've had join our team since the middle of February. We're very excited to have them, and they are already making great contributions to Team Canton. So thank you all very much.
welcome all of you to the city of Canton, the coolest small town in America. We're happy to have you on the team and look forward to working with you in the days, weeks, and months ahead, years ahead. So, next, we have a couple of presentations this evening. And the first one will be a presentation of the fiscal year 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. We have Mr. Clay Pilgrim with Rushton & Company, Certified Public Accountants. Welcome, Mr. Pilgrim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Council, for having Rushton back to do your audit for 2023. So you all should have several items. I know you had them in your packets as well electronically, but you should have the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report and then a couple of letters. I do have a brief presentation to go through with you here, but if we do have specific questions as well from the report, I'm happy to answer those as well. By and large, the largest part of my presentation will be the actual presentation on the screen. So, all right. So before I get started, I usually want to first thank you all, but also thank your entire team here at the city. Obviously, Mr. Peppers, Mr. Ingram, Ms. Forrester, we probably bother the most throughout the audit process, but we do speak and work with many different departments, many different employees throughout the city, and they all are very helpful in the audit process, and we're very appreciative of that. And the audit process did go very smoothly. Pleased to say that this report was issued on time to the Georgia Department of Audits, and I think also to the Georgia Government Finance Officers Association. So even though we're a little past that deadline at this point presenting, the actual report itself was submitted on time. All right, so when you're looking in your Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, on pages 1 through 3, you will find our Independent Auditor Report. So I'm pleased to present that for 2023. We have an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, or clean opinion. Nothing came to our attention during the audit that would prohibit us from issuing an unmodified opinion. We do follow government auditing standards, of course, with Canton being a city. We are required to follow government auditing standards. These financial statements I keep referring to, and some numbers we'll be looking at here in a moment from those financial statements, are the responsibility of Canton's management, and our responsibility as your independent auditor is to opine upon, give that opinion that these financial statements are not materially misstated, whether due to error or fraud. And again, to reiterate, we do have an unmodified opinion in that regard. All right, I usually always call your attention to a few statements in this entire report. So this report's 110 pages, but of those, there's many statements, many schedules in that report. There's only 2 in there that bring all activities of the city together in one on a full accrual basis of accounting. That's your government-wide statements, which would be your statement of net position. It's like a balance sheet. It's found on pages 13 and 14. And your statement of activities, like an income statement there, found on page 15. So a few numbers from those statements. So we're looking here at government-wide net position. So this is going to be the equity of the city. And I have a 3-year comparison for you there on the screen. You'll see there for 2023, the city had $440,229 in total net position. That's broken down, as you can see there, in 3 categories. You've got your net investment capital assets. That's going to be land, buildings, equipment, less accumulated depreciation on those assets, less any debt utilized to acquire those assets. That was $163,551,488. You had restricted net position. I usually always use the example. This is going to be resources that are held that are restricted by outside parties or legislation. A good example there would be special purpose local option sales tax. Any unspent SPLOST proceeds there would be reported in this category. $9,831,580. And then the remainder there, residual of unrestricted net position, $32,057,161. You'll see there for the year, net position in total increased $14,069,851. All right, looking next at your general fund. So you all spend a lot of time looking at your general fund throughout the year, mostly because it is the chief operating fund, of course, of the city. As far as the financial statements, the general fund financial statements are found on pages 16, 18, and 67. And so looking at a few numbers there, your revenues for the year in the general fund increased $2,606,453, about 13%. Largely contributed to that increase, your property taxes went up by a little over $1.8 million, and then insurance premium taxes increased $882,314. There's some other fluctuations, but these were the larger 2, of course, fluctuations that accounted for most of that change. On the expenditure side, your expenditures decreased $3,220,044, a little over 12%, largely due to land purchase in the prior year. As you can see there, general administration capital outlay in total, your general administration department decreased by $6,212,704. A few departments that were up, police increased $1,397,011. Various different items across the board, personal services being one, some small equipment purchases, and then capital outlay. Fire increased $615,745 due to contractual payments to others there. Your unrestricted fund balance, which is made up of your unassigned and your assigned. So a moment ago we talked about net position, which is going to be equity at the government-wide level for the whole city. We're talking about fund balance here, still talking about equity, it's just a different basis of accounting, so it's called fund balance rather than net position. But you'll see there for 2023, unrestricted fund balance, $16,788,146. Obviously not a perfect reserve calculation, but we always look at what your unrestricted fund balance is, and oftentimes even unassigned fund balance, as a percentage of your expenditures, your annual expenditures. A lot of moving parts there, but it's about 73% of your expenditures. So what we're saying there is, if all revenues were to cease coming into the city, you could operate about 8.8 months on your existing fund balance there, unrestricted fund balance. So that's very healthy in that regard as far as fund balance. All right, enough of me talking. I've got some visuals here for you for a couple slides. First one being those revenues and expenditures we just talked about. You got a 3-year comparison here. There's a little spike there in 2022. Again, that was mostly due to that land purchase last year. So you can see there your revenue line item being the green line item and expenditures being blue. So for 2023, revenues $22,774,513, expenditures that's backwards. $22,124,231. Looking at fund balance, we just talked about 23's fund balance, unrestricted fund balance being the yellow line or gold line there, $16,788,146. Total fund balance, $17,779,963. And there's kind of a trend you can see there for the last 3 fiscal years in relation to your fund balance in the general fund. Looking at a few more, that's shrunk down on us there, apologize for that. New marketing person in the office. So most of the information we have here, if you've heard me present before, similar information, we just dressed it up a little with a few different slides here. So fix that one. But you'll see there, this is your general fund revenues by source. So as with most governments, whether city or county, you can see there the largest percentage of your revenues as far as source is concerned is property taxes, followed there by other taxes, which would be quite a few different items. You've got franchise taxes there, and then insurance premium taxes are the other large revenue sources there. On the expenditure side, as with most all governments, you will see there in the light green at the bottom, 58% of your expenditures in the general fund are public safety expenditures. So that we see that range anywhere between 40, 45, all the way up to 60, 65% of expenditures. So very much in line with what we typically see in relation to total expenditures. The second largest is general government, and then followed there by public works. And housing and development is actually around the same as public works. All right, looking at your water and sewage fund, so we've got here on the screen your operating revenues and expenses for the last 3 fiscal years. You can find this information on page 21 of the ACFR. You'll see there the blue line being operating revenues, $19,384,166 for 2023, and the gold line operating expenses, $9,947,380 for 2023. And you can kind of see their history there for the last 3 fiscal years. All right, so I mentioned the 110 pages in this report. Most all of those are the responsibility of management, as I mentioned. There are 2 things that are our responsibility as your auditor, one being that independent auditor's report I mentioned earlier, the other being report on internal control, compliance, and other matters. That's found on pages 109 and 110. As I mentioned earlier, everything went very smoothly. We do look a lot at processes, procedures, policies, those sorts of things. Pleased to present that for 2023, we have no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, and also no material noncompliance noted in the controls or compliance of the city. Sometimes, as I present, you'll have a third letter that's our responsibility, and that's report on internal control and compliance over federal programs if we have to perform a single audit. For 2023, due to timing of expenditures, we actually did not have, the city did not expend over $750,000 of federal funds, so we did not perform a single audit for 2023. All right, so a few other things. I'd like to keep you all abreast of changes that have either taken place during the year in which we're auditing or future changes that are coming. So we've had a lot in this space over the last few years because we've had a lot of new changes as far as accounting standards are concerned. So if you heard me present last year, you recall me talking about GASB Statement 87, which was a very large standard that GASB enacted that was required to be implemented last year. And I mentioned then that I think there were 7 leases that the city had that were required to be recorded. Even though that was not a new standard this year, it does carry on until they change it. But this year, I made some notes here just to show the magnitude. So that GASB 87, last year was 7 leases. This year, there were 28 new leases. So you got 35 in total at 9/30/23, and a total liability of about $1,380,000. So that is some work on the staff getting that implemented. So I didn't want to move on from that. I wanted to make sure you knew that 87 is still affecting things. But we do have one new standard this year, GASB Statement number 96. We actually had 3 new standards this year, but the more significant one of the 3, really the only significant one of the 3, was 96, as I have on the screen here. And that deals with what we call SBITAs, or subscription-based information technology arrangements. You probably remember, if you heard me last year speak, that this one was coming. It's almost identical to the leases as far as accounting is concerned, but what we're talking about here are mostly software subscriptions. As you know, if you've bought any software lately, you don't typically buy the actual physical software or a disk or whatever and put it on your computer. It's now purchased online, and it's on a subscription basis. So you subscribe. If you don't pay your subscription, you no longer have access. So that's what this standard is talking about. It's accounted for just like a lease. If you sign a contract, if it's long-term, obviously you're indebted for that. You're under contract for that. There was one SBITA that was recorded this year for some software. You actually entered into the contract in 2022, but this standard didn't apply until 2023. So there's about 2 years have passed on that. There's about 3 years remaining on that contract. Balance of about $215,000 at 9/30/2023. Just like 87 last year, as I brought it up this year, this 96 was required to be implemented during 2023, but it carries on. So it's not just a one and done. Any new subscription contracts or lease contracts you all enter into, of course, will be required to be accounted for in the same regard. As far as new standards are concerned, I am pleased to present, for once, I haven't been able to say this in some number of years, there are not really any significant GASB standards that apply to the city of Canton for 2024 fiscal year that you're currently in right now. I don't usually get to say that. I'm usually talking about all the work that's upcoming. But there is one coming in 2025, and it's actually not going to be too significant. It is a pretty good change, but it's actually going to lessen some requirements, and that's related to compensated absences and the disclosures related to those. And that concludes my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions you all have related to the numbers or any other information. I do want to make sure, before we go to questions, I should have mentioned this. There's a letter that says significant audit matters on it. I'm not going to go through this specifically, but these are required communications to you all as the board charged with governance. Most everything in this letter is boilerplate information that would, if you read last year's letter, would be the exact same. A few changes here. One, the dates changed, just we move forward. The other thing that changed is this is where we disclose any new accounting standards. I talked about the most significant one a moment ago. There were a couple others that really had no impact on the city, also listed there. And then a few other things. Everything else in here, though, is mostly required, just required communications. Had I had something that was of substance in this letter, it would be like if I had difficulties dealing with management or anything like that, I would have let you all know that long before now. So none of that applies, but I do want to make sure that is required to be communicated to you all. And that concludes my presentation.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Pilgrim. We appreciate your clean opinion, and it's always great to have a report where our revenues have increased and our expenditures have decreased. So It's always good to get that good report. So, and I think all members of council have the complete report, 140 plus pages, and we'll have a pop quiz at the next meeting. But until then, are there any questions from Mr. Pilgrim? I do want to thank our team and Mr. Peppers, Mr. Ingram, Ms. Forrester, and the entire team for their good work and assistance in creating this clean report. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. You all need anything in the interim, by all means, reach out. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Our next presentation is presentation of the 2023 annual report from the City of Canton Police Department. We have crime analyst Alec Robles with us tonight. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. This is our 2023 annual report. It's an abbreviated version, PowerPoint form. The extended version is available if you guys need it. This should cover pretty much everything, numbers, stats, things that we get into throughout the year. So, biggest thing for us this year was the implication of NIBRS. What is NIBRS? NIBRS stands for the National Incident-Based Reporting System. This is essentially how we collect our stats and collect our numbers. This is a change from what we used to, or the way we used to collect them, which was called SRS, which was a summary reporting system. The biggest change for this would be the National Incident-Based Reporting System collects all incidents that occur, or all offenses that occur within a given incident. Best example would be if there was an armed robbery where the suspect also stole somebody's car and committed a murder. The SRS would only take the highest offense, which was called the hierarchy rule. So it only took the highest offense out of that. NIBRS would collect all three of those offenses. So it's a more detailed version of the way that we collect our data. NIBRS also collects more detailed information, arrestee information, the time and date of the offense, sex of the arrestee, race information, things of that nature. So it's just a more detailed way to collect data. NIBRS collects 24 offense categories for 52 specific offenses, which, like I said, is obviously it's just a much more detailed version of the way we collect our data. SRS only collected 10. This screenshot off to the right is from the FBI website. It's just a quick snapshot of how numbers were affected and how statistics were affected when agencies switched over from SRS to NIBRS. So, like in the example I gave you where there was one incident counted two different ways, one counted just one offense, the other one counted three offenses, obviously that accounts for in crime and in your statistics. So that's just a quick snapshot of how numbers were affected nationwide. Rape didn't really have much of an effect because it's just one victim in those, but robberies and aggravated assaults and burglaries and things like that of an uptick there. This graph right here is what they call our Group A offense chart. Group A offenses are going to be your quote-unquote more serious offenses. The inverse of that would be Group B offenses, which is your less serious offenses, your disorderly conducts, your loitering and prowling, driving under the influence, things like that. So your Group A, it's a little bit harder to read right now. I'll get into some of the meat of it in slides. But like I said, we transitioned over to NIBRS in 2023. The department went through a pretty rigorous testing process with the state, with the GBI. We had to go through several months of testing in order to convert all of our data over to NIBRS. This is an FBI guideline. Basically, all that's saying is if you want your statistics and now your data accounted for with the FBI, you have to be NIBRS compliant. So we made the transition over to NIBRS to have all of our data uploaded with the GBI and with the FBI. Because of the things that I was saying, unfortunately, our data from last year and years prior are going to be different than this year, so we're not able to compare year over year like we have been previously. Unfortunately, it's just an apples and oranges comparison, so we're going to try to use, hopefully, 2023 is going to be our baseline year going forward as our way of comparing stats. So 2024, we'll be able to compare to 2023 since it'll be NIBRS versus NIBRS. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that with 2022 because we were still doing SRS at the time. Like I said, I'll get into some of the meat of it here in a minute. I don't know if you can see it right now. It's gotten a little shrunk, but basically, while this chart is breaking down all of our crimes, property crimes accounted for 60% of our Group A crimes, which is a good thing because the inverse of that would be persons crimes, and obviously you don't want to have more persons crimes than property crimes. So 60% is a good number for us. Calls for service, we answered over 27,000 calls for service in 2023. This is coming from the 911 Dispatch Center in Cherokee County. That's a 7% increase from 2022. We expect some general fluctuation year over year. That's just going to happen. So over the past 10 years, we have increased 3%. A lot of that can just be accounted for, obviously, the growth of the city, growth of the department, our ability to answer calls, things like that. So 3% is pretty much right where we're at, and that's right where we expect to be. Like I said, this is our Group A crimes, kind of our breakdown of some of the numbers that would stand out, some of the offenses that would stand out. First and foremost, obviously, best news, we had 0 homicides in 2023, always a fantastic number for us. The biggest number that will stand out here is 250 larceny cases. The reason that we have so many larcenies is because larceny also accounts for shoplifting. Shoplifting, obviously, with a lot of our major retailers that we have in the city, we're going to see a lot of shoplifting. We expect to see numbers like that. In the grand scheme of things, 250 is not a large number, so we're pretty happy with that. We also, like I said, we have a low number of violent crimes as well. Only 2 rapes for the whole year, no homicides, like I said, so anytime we have a low number of violent crimes, it's always good news for us. Motor vehicle accidents, we actually had a 15% reduction in motor vehicle accidents this year, just under 1,400 motor vehicle accidents for the year. We like to attribute a lot of that to our Special Operations Division. They do a lot of traffic operations, trying to keep our roadways safe. So with a lot of our major gateways into the city being Interstate 575, Riverstone Parkway, Cumming Highway, that's where we expect to see the majority of our accidents, and that's where the majority of our accidents were. So like I said, anytime we have a large reduction in accidents like that, we're very happy to see it, especially with all the growth that we've had in the city. Our Criminal Investigations Division was extremely busy this year. They had 432 total cases in 2023. Just for a little bit of context, they fluctuate usually between 4 to 6 detectives in the division. So having 432 cases between that amount of people just kind of shows you how hardworking they were this year. They remained pretty busy. Of those 432, we had 39 that remained active at the end of the year. That number's obviously probably dwindled down a considerable amount. By now, being in April, that was pulled at the end of the year. So only 39 at the end of the year is going to be a smaller number now. Like I said, that just shows how hardworking they were. They had a 58% clearance rate, which is very good for us. Clearance rate is going to be anything that was closed out or cleared by arrest, anything that's not being worked anymore. So 58% clearance rate is very good for them. They were extremely hardworking, very proud of them this year. Our property and evidence intake, this is just a quick little snapshot of how our property room operated this year. We intook 818 pieces of property. That's going to be anything that entered into the property room for any reason, whether that was missing a picked up wallet or anything as small as a DVD for security. To the department is very, very meticulously tracked. We have to be able to account for everything that enters and exits that room. So we had 818 pieces come in. We were able to dispose of 523 pieces. Anything like that is going to be anything that anytime a case is closed out, we try to get it out of there as soon as possible, so that way we're not backlogged in the evidence room. We only have a finite amount of space in there. So anytime a case is closed out, whether it be for a drug case or recovered property from something that was lost, that's all the disposed cases or all the disposed items right there. That's 523 items. Our training and career advancement, we had 8 total promotions. That's going to be officers going to corporals, corporals to sergeants, sergeants to lieutenants. We had 8 promotions, so we had a lot of vacancies. So 8 promotions is a good amount for us. We had just over 1,400 in-house training hours. Those are going to be from our people that got their instructor certifications. Anything that's housed at the police department in Canton is going to be our firearms training, our ethics training that's taken every year, defensive tactics for officer safety, things like that. So anything that's hosted at the department is going to be accounted for in those 1,413 hours. Just kind of wrapping up, this is our records department. As you can see, they remained also extremely busy this year. 3,450 customers served. So anytime somebody walks into the department and they see one of those clerks there at the front desk, or they're helped by our admin assistants up front, that's going to go into those customers served, whether it be for an accident report, a bartender or waiter coming in for an alcohol permit, an incident report, anything like that. So, and it's like I said, anytime somebody comes through those doors and sees somebody at that front desk, they're helped by one of our fantastic clerks up front. They had 428 walk-ins, did just over 100 background checks as well. So, like I said, they remained extremely busy as well. And just kind of wrapping up, like I said, as far as our stats and numbers go, unfortunately, we weren't able to have anything to compare it to, but going forward, that's our goal, to continue staying on with NIBRS and making sure everything is up to the FBI guidelines. And starting next year, we should be able to have something to compare it to. So if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. That's all I have. So thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Robles, for that great report. We appreciate the detail and the new reporting system, but most of all, we appreciate the officers and detectives, everyone in the entire Canton Police Department for fulfilling their mission to create a safer Canton by reducing crime, ensuring the safety of our citizens, and continuing to build trust in the community. So thank you for the great report, and thanks to the entire team for their good work. Of course, we don't want any crime in the city, but we know that's not the reality, and we appreciate the great work and you keeping that crime as low as possible. So,
Thank you.
any questions for Mr. Robles?
I do have one.
Yes, Mr. Water.
Mr. Robles, realizing that we can't compare 22 to 23, are we at least going forward and doing a month-over-month comparison?
Between last year and this year?
Yes, or even
or
calendar year.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
January compared to.
We have the ability to do so. It's a little bit different, the way the reporting system goes. We have to upload all of our data to the GBI website. There's a lot of checks and balances in there. So we have the ability to do a month-over-month comparison for specific offenses. As far as that Group A chart that I showed you guys, a lot of that is just raw numbers. We don't really track the percentages month over month, just based on we have no ability to pull it other than what the GBI gives us. So basically, yes, we do. We're still working on making sure that it's all accurate, though, just based on, because it's such a new thing that the GBI is also still working on. A lot of that's not in our hands. So yes, we have the ability to do so, but we're working on the accuracy for it as well.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Tolan?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Mr. Robles. Much appreciated. One thing I noted is between 22 and 23. In 22, we had 1,632 motor vehicle accidents, and then this past year we only had 1,395, which is a decrease of 14.5%. Other than just good luck, any idea why that number is down?
We have now a fully staffed special operations division. We've had a lot of vacancies within that division just based on necessity. So now that we have a considerable amount of more manpower in that division, we're able to do a lot more traffic operations than that. There is expected, like you said, to be some sort of general fluctuation, right? We're not going to have 0% year over year. There's going to be some plus and minus despite the year. 15% is a pretty drastic increase. But like I said, we attribute a lot of that to our special operations division. That's their sole purpose. They do a lot of traffic operations, a lot of social media awareness, things like we have the red speed cameras now that have had a major impact on the speeding violations within the school zones as well. But like I said, a lot of that is attributed to our special operations.
Thank you. Appreciate your work.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that presentation. I guess my question just was, so with the NIBRS system, you guys, that you get the data and we're not exactly sure of its accuracy, will there be a baseline of some sort? Will you guys still track this so you have something to compare it to?
Yeah, I mean, the data is accurate. As far as what's being pulled from the GBI, they're basically, to not trying to get too specific on the details, but it's a computer file. So there is some bugs that are to be expected within the reporting system. So the numbers that we pull are all accurate. So when we see the numbers, they're accurate. It's a matter of being able to have the ability to pull them at times. A lot of it, like I said, is out of our hands. There's just some bugs that are being worked out within the systems. So it's more so the ability to retrieve the numbers and not the numbers themselves. So the numbers are accurate. It's just the ability to retrieve them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you again. We appreciate the numbers and the data, which is very important to all of us. And as the previous speaker mentioned, 60% approximately of our entire annual budget goes to public safety and our police department. It's money well spent. And again, thanks to Canton Police Department for providing that good return on investment to our citizens and businesses by keeping crime very low. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll now move into our business meeting. You have in your packet the draft council meeting minutes from April 4th. Are there any changes, revisions, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion approved and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. Next, informational items. I do believe Mr. Peppers is going to review. We have Georgia Cities Week coming up next week, and it's very exciting, a lot of great events. And Mr. Peppers, would you share some of the details and highlights with us for that?
Absolutely. So next week is dedicated as Georgia Cities Week by the Georgia Municipal Association, and is an opportunity for cities across the state to get together and share some of the great work that municipalities do in driving the state's economy. And we will actually kick off Georgia Cities Week on Saturday, April the 20th from 10 to 4. There's a Garden in the Park event in downtown Canton where there'll be homegrown, homemade art, flowers, food, music, etc. At that event. On Monday, April 22nd from 3 to 6 in this room, we have our Teen and Young Adult Job and Volunteer Fair. It's a great opportunity for individuals who are younger, who are looking for a summer job, looking for an internship, looking for volunteer opportunities to get connected with businesses and volunteer organizations that need assistance. On Tuesday, the 23rd at 5 o'clock at Harmon Park, we're having our grand reopening of that park, which will also include a ribbon kicking ceremony with our friends from Atlanta United when we officially open the mini pitch soccer field that's down there. There will be food trucks and giveaways and much more on that going on from 5 to 7 on Tuesday the 23rd. On the 25th, from 2 to 4, we're going to have Bus Stop with a Cop, and it's actually going to be here at City Hall. We're the only city hall in the county that is a bus stop, and so we get a number of buses that come through every day to pick up children and drop off children, and so that day our officers will interact with the school children as they get off their buses from 2 to 4. On Friday the 26th, our Women's Professional Soccer League for Canton is having a release of their new jersey. They're having a jersey launch party for the new season. That will be down at Reformation Brewery, and it recognizes our Women's Professional Soccer League team from 6 to 8. And then from Friday through Sunday, we had the Peaberry Film Festival, which will be going on at the Canton Theater. It is a ticketed event at peaberryfest.org. It's great independent films. There's interaction with filmmakers and producers through the entire event, but that's at the Canton Theater on the 26th through the 28th.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So, as you can see, we have a lot going on next week from having Atlanta United in town for the opening of the pitch field and their first grant to any city in the state for that product, and our professional women's soccer league beginning there and launching their second season, international film festivals, teen job fair, so something for everyone, and hope to see you at all these events next week. Going to be an exciting weekend in the city of Canton. Any other announcements this evening? Okay. We'll move on to our 10-minute public input, and again, this is an opportunity for our citizens to speak on subjects that are important to them. It's a monologue to council. It's not a dialogue, but to bring and discuss issues that are important to them that council may want to consider going forward. We have this evening one speaker signed up, and that's Mr. Michael Burnley. If you please come forward to the podium, state your name and address, and provide us with your comments. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. My name is Michael Burnley. Live at 320 Hidden Creek Lane down in Canton, just in basically borderline with Holly Springs as well. So come to you this evening, myself, my wife, a few neighbors behind me as well, some neighbors that couldn't make it. So we've had some real severe parking issues in our neighborhood over the last several years, have just grown and grown and grown, and we've not been able to do anything about it. So currently, the children have to walk from the back part of the neighborhood to the front part of the neighborhood because school buses can no longer navigate through the neighborhood safely to be able to pick up the kids or even drop them off. So that being said, our park playground that we have across the street from my house, we have people parking all alongside that curb right there where parents typically would like to park and take their children to the playground. They can't even do that. So, and I've got several pictures here that I'd like for you guys to see when you have the opportunity to, but one specifically that I'd like to point out, this one here is at the front entrance of our neighborhood. So from corner to corner, there's a car parked behind and behind and behind and behind each other. So it is now a one-way street. So, take a look. The odds of something happening when somebody comes into the neighborhood at a high rate of speed, which is another issue that we have, is people speeding in the neighborhood, getting in and out. We'd like to potentially either see speed bumps, no parking signs, anything that would actually make our neighborhood a little bit better a place. But it's been a struggle. We've been in contact with our HOA. Because of our HOA, we don't really have a lot of control over that because there's probably, I think, about 60+% of the people in the neighborhood that rent. And we've got one rental company in particular, I think it's American Homes, give or take company, that controls the majority of that neighborhood. And we have nothing else left to do. And I don't know where to go from here. Our neighbors don't know where to go from here. And we're just trying to come up with some kind of options to make our neighborhood a safer place. So, and then on top of that, emergencies. We had 2 emergencies in our neighborhood this week. One involving a neighbor. I don't know the gentleman's name. Fire truck had to park about a house and a half to 2 houses back from his house because there was a car parked on the side of the street in front of that house. Fire truck gets there. Guess what? They're blocking the entire street. Nobody can get through. Don't know the nature of the emergency. I don't think it was that big of a deal because there was no ambulance. Now, myself, however, is a completely different story. Last Monday, I gotten home from the hospital from the night before from surgery and woke up in some extreme pain. Had my wife called 911. So had a fire truck and ambulance show up. Ambulance was in front of our mailbox. Fire truck was behind the ambulance on the other side of our driveway. Well, there's 3-4 cars parked on the other side where the playground is. Fire truck and EMS does what they need to do. They park and they come help myself. Well, nobody in the neighborhood can get out, including the people that were actually parked there. And that's part of the problem. Somebody, as I was being loaded up into the ambulance, was trying to get out. Guess what? They couldn't because they were tending me. And, there's got to be some kind of a resolution that either we can do as a neighborhood or even as a community to get this taken care of. But at any rate, we do thank you for your time, and I'm going to leave you with these pictures as well.
Thank you, Mr. Burnley. We appreciate your comments. And leave these photos with our assistant city manager. Okay. We have 3 items on our consent agenda this evening. As usual, I will read these 3 items off. If anyone would like any of these items removed for further discussion, I'd be happy to do so. Item A, approval of adopting the City of Canton Sustainability Plan. Item B, approval of a contract for pest control services. And item C, approval of a municipal services agreement for animal control between the City of Canton and Cherokee County. We've discussed these items at our previous meetings. And would anyone like any of those items removed for discussion, or are there any motions?
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. We'll move into old business. We have 1 item. That's discussion and possible approval of the letter of support for the TBG Senior Residential Project application with Georgia Department of Community Affairs. An update on funding request. Mr. Patton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I am the designated primary project contact for the Georgia Initiative of Community Housing Canton GIC Housing Team Project. With the low income tax credit housing application process, applicants get extra points if they receive approval from the GIC community in regards to their application going before Georgia Department of Community Affairs. The city is allowed to make one approval for the award of those additional points each year with each application cycle. Canton Housing Authority does not have any applications or anything in place. TBG Residential was here 2 weeks ago, made the presentation in regards to the senior project that's in Riverstone that was already entitled for the senior apartments. They have requested approval for the support letter and the award of those GIC points as a part of their application. And I can tell you with this competitive process and everything, those 2 points could be the difference between receiving approval and not receiving approval. This property was submitted by a previous developer and they did not receive an award. So all of the points are critical in this application. It's a statewide competitive process. Representatives from TBG are here as well. I know that the application process, besides the letter that's prepared by the primary contact for the GIC portion, there is a letter of support from the mayor as a part of the application process. I'm here to answer any questions you might have. As far as an update on the loan, Mr. Peppers probably can address that better than I can.
On that matter, I did reach out to Jacqueline Loberg with the Canton. They have a board meeting next week, and the city is going to put together an MOU for the Housing Authority to consider if they would like to participate as the lender on the project on behalf of the city.
Okay.
And if that is favorable with them, then it would come back to the council on May.
At our May 2nd meeting. So, and thank you, Mr. Peppers and Mr. Patton. As far as tonight, the only matter we're considering for possible action would be just the possible approval of just the letter of support for the project. Correct, Mr. Patton?
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Patton? Mr. Waterman?
Mr. Patton, just to refresh my memory, how many units are currently dedicated to seniors in Canton, or that would classify themselves as affordable?
Affordable units, I would have to look that up and get back to you in regards to total number of units that would meet the classification for affordable. But this project was approved by City Council a couple of years ago. It was entitled for up to 251 moderate income or low income seniors. TBG in phase one is proposing 96 units with this application going forward this year. I know that I think 10% of the units at the apartment complex next to the Publix at Prominence, 10% of those units were set aside as what would be considered affordable units. We have had some developers that have agreed to contribute to the Canton Housing Trust Fund for provision of affordable housing.
And just to confirm, this letters board would be for just phase one, so the 96 units, which
Correct.
is a reduction from what the property's entitled to, up to 251, correct?
Correct, and they, TBG in their presentation 2 weeks ago did show a phase two for another 96 units, but phase two is not part of this application process.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Any other questions?
If there are no other questions, I do want to make a motion.
Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Mayor,
Tolan?
I'd like to move that we approve the drafting of a letter of support for TPG's application for the competitive low-income housing tax credit program of the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, and to authorize the mayor to sign such letter.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor,
Thank you, Mr.
council
Patton.
members.
We have several new business items this evening. Item A, discussion of the Title VI annual update. Ms. Watson?
Thank you. So this is just an update to our annual Title VI policy. This policy is required as part of our LAP certification and the ability to or manage federally funded projects. And this is basically just a policy that outlines discrimination policy for any kind of grievances or issues that someone may have as we manage those projects. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. And nothing has changed from the previous 3 years.
You answered my question before I'm going to ask you, but okay. And we're just discussing this tonight. There's no action requested on this tonight.
Yes,
Any questions for Ms. Watson on this? Okay. We'll move forward on your other items, Ms. Watson, so we're keeping you busy tonight. Item B, discussion of possible action on resolution to submit application for transportation improvement project solicitation 2024 and funding commitment.
Thank you. As we discussed at the retreat, the application for the transportation improvement project through the ARC has been opened. It will close May 6th. And in that process, I will be requesting additional funding for the projects that we have on Highway 140, both the one at Marietta Highway and the one at Reinhard College Parkway. The increase will be from $4.9 million to $10.4 for the Marietta Highway project, and from $3.1 million to 9.3 on the Reinhard College Parkway project. And just so that I can explain those costs a little bit. As we move through the project, the engineers continually do estimates on the project, so that's why the prices have went up so much. The original estimates were completed in 2017 when we did the original Highway 140 project. So a lot has changed since then. When those estimates were done, we didn't know that we would be going through the ARC, through the federal funding project process, which does require more environmental studies and such things such as that. So that's why the prices have went up. Now, this resolution is just for the 20% match, so the city will only be responsible for 20% of those costs. Of that 20%, 34.2% can be paid for with impact fees. The rest will be paid for with SPLOST. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Watson?
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, Mr. Waterman.
I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution to submit the application for Transportation Improvement Project, solicitation 2024, and the funding commitment.
Thank you. Do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
So a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. Item C, discussion and possible action on resolution to authorize the City of Canton to enter into a local government lighting project with the Georgia Department of Transportation.
Thank you. So on one of those projects, the one at Highway 140 and Reinhardt College Parkway, the project will be a roundabout, and in that will be Georgia Department of Transportation will be installing lighting, and this agreement will state that the city is responsible for energy, maintenance, and operation of those lights. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. And this is standard agreements we have with GDOT on other lighting projects that are in it. Correct. Any questions for Ms. Watson on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, Mr. Roach.
I would like to make a motion on the resolution to authorize the City of Canton to enter into a local government lighting project agreement with the Georgia Department of Transportation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. Item D, discussion of West Main Street pedestrian corridor right-of-way acquisition services and drainage redesign.
Thank you. So this is just a continuation of the West Main project that we're currently working on. This specific proposal is for right-of-way project management services, right-of-way negotiation services, and redesign of the drainage. This is a worst-case scenario price from PDP, which totals $96,575. We are planning to approach the property owners before doing appraisals, and that way that will save the city some money if we don't have to do those. If property owners are not in favor, we will have to do appraisals, which is why the cost is high currently. Hopefully we'll be able to keep those prices down as low as possible because the property owners are aware of the project. So we hope that will help us speed things up. Okay. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And we're just discussing this tonight, correct?
Yes, sir.
And
yes.
This is, again, just for the assessment and the drainage redesign. It's not the actual acquisition cost, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Watson?
One question.
Yes, Mr. Roach.
How many property owners will that affect? I think you said
9.
9. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Item E, discussion and possible action on Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA Transition Plan Update. Ms. Watson.
Thank you. So this is another requirement of receiving federal funds that we have an ADA transition plan. We originally adopted a plan in 2012, and this is just an update of that plan. Basically, this is similar to the Title VI plan, we had to undergo a self-evaluation of the city infrastructure, parks and facility, our right-of-way facilities, and then any programmatic barriers. So staff did complete the city infrastructure self-evaluation for the city buildings, and that can be found in the back of the document. We are currently undergoing the Parks and Rec Master Plan, which will look at the ADA at the parks, and then I will be requesting in the fiscal year 25 for funding for a sidewalk evaluation, so that we can move forward with having a more detailed deficiency log. The ADA transition plan, basically, we have to have all the city buildings and city facilities, city right-of-way, as close to ADA accessible as possible. And so this plan will help us transition into being 100% compliant. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And this is just an update to the existing plan and requirement for federal funding, correct?
Correct.
Any questions for Ms. Watson?
Again, if there are no questions, I would like to make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Tolan?
I move that we approve the ADA transition plan update.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members are voted for the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Mr. Peppers?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. A few items I have with you tonight. First of all, you were in receipt earlier this week of our operations report from March. That is also on the city's website under the city manager's page, so I wanted to make sure you had a copy of that. I wanted to give you a couple of project updates. The Downtown Development Authority did approve an agreement on tax allocation district MOU, a memorandum of understanding, with the multifamily development that's going down at the mill. That was approved at their meeting this past week. They will be working with them on on a development agreement. That development agreement will come back to the council at some point over the next couple of months for your consideration, as that project is seeking some financial assistance from the tax allocation district. The police department is working right now on getting together contracts with Axon. As we mentioned to you at the retreat in the first quarter of this year, the city is wanting to change vendors as it relates to our body-worn cameras and dashboard cameras. Axon is the vendor that we would like to move forward with. We hope to have those contracts to you at the May 2nd meeting for your consideration. That will be one of those technology contracts that was mentioned by Mr. Pilgrim that we will have to look for. SBITA. That's the new acronym I need to learn now. That will be a SBITA that we will have to recognize in 2025 and moving forward. I did want to note that last week, Mr. Ingram and Mr. John Warricks from the Utility Billing Department and I had a meeting with the Executive Director for the Cherokee County Water and Sewer Authority, Sewerage Authority. They currently have an internal board policy that they only provide up to 10% of their total water capacity, their permit capacity, to wholesale customers. The City of Canton is a wholesale customer of Cherokee County Water and Sewer Authority. We also sell some water to Cherokee County Water and Sewer Authority. The City of Waleska is a wholesale customer of both the City of Canton and the Cherokee County Water and Sewerage Authority. Ballground is a wholesale customer of Cherokee County. Woodstock is a wholesale customer of Cherokee County and Cobb County Marietta Water Authority. In essence, what happens is, for Canton, we are a water producer. We have a permit, we pull water out of the Etowah River, we treat that water, we sell it to our customers. There are some situations where we have neighborhoods where the closest water source is Cherokee County, but the city is the sewer source. And so in an instance like that, instead of a resident receiving multiple utility bills, we put a master meter in, we buy water at a wholesale rate from Cherokee County Water and Sewer. We resell that water at our standard rate to the customers in the area and put our other utility on that bill. We have over the years been basically the parent entity for Cherokee County Water and Sewerage Authority. Back in the 50s, when the county decided that it wanted to start its own water and sewer to be able to provide that service, they actually were a large buyer of City of Canton water. So we sold them water so that they could start their operations and then in turn add customers and add the ability to get their own permits and their own infrastructure. Fast forward into the 90s, we were basically buying as much water from Cherokee County as we were selling back to Cherokee County because of where portions of territory lines and things were. Service delivery strategy in the late 90s said that we had to create our own boundaries for water and sewer service, and that helped deal with some of those issues. Additionally, over time, the city's added infrastructure. We've added storage tanks. We now have a reservoir. Their operations have changed. They've increased capacity and facilities, so it's kind of an evolving process. Most people don't really care who provides their water. They just want to know when they go to the tap, they turn it on, there's water there. Well, what has happened to Cherokee County is that with their 10% self-imposed regulation of no more than 10% wholesale, they've bumped up to that 10%, which means they don't have any additional capacity to sell to others. So, for example, a city of Woodstock, when they need to add capacity because they don't produce their own water except for a couple of wells, they have to buy that capacity from Cherokee County or Cobb County. Cherokee County no longer can sell that capacity to them. So Cherokee County is in a moratorium on water wholesale capacity with other entities. Now, they're not selling all the water that they have retail. They've got more that they can work with, but their board has said they want to keep that 10% rule. The city of Canton has 692,000 gallons per day that we have been grandfathered in by the Cherokee County Water and Sewer Authority, which means that at any point we can pull up to basically 700,000 gallons a day for use within the city. We currently use, on average, about 191,000 of those gallons, and we use on a maximum daily basis about 254,000 of those gallons. So we're not at our maximum capacity. Back in 2007, the Water and Sewer Authority started selling capacity by 1,000 gallons. And so you would buy a credit, and so over the years, Ball Ground has purchased 180,000 in capacity. Bartow County has 160,000 in capacity. Etowah Water and Sewerage Authority, which is Dawson County, they have 50,000 in capacity. The city of Jasper gets 260,000 in capacity that's purchased. Pickens County has 500,000 gallons of capacity. Waleska has 300,000 gallons of capacity, and the city of Woodstock has purchased 140,000 gallons of capacity. In a sense, we have 700,000. We've never paid for any of it. Part of it was just that understanding over time that we were working together on water and sewer, and we basically got them started. To be able to deal with their threshold, their staff is proposing later this month to the board that they reduce everybody down to a general entry-level baseline of capacity of 200,000 gallons, and that they add to that any gallons that have been purchased, and they're going to give a couple of credits to some other entities. So we would get a baseline of 200,000 gallons, and they would adjust ours to 270,000 gallons because that meets our maximum day currently, and we basically lose out on the rest of that capacity up to 700,000 gallons that we've never paid for. We really don't have a whole lot of standing in that, but that's what their plan is. I have reached out to to the board chair just to ask if he's aware of this situation, and he said yes, that staff is working on some ideas. I did tell them that I plan to be at their board meeting later this month because I have some opinions. Maybe if we don't need all the water that we currently have capacity for, that might be fine for them to do that, with the understanding that if we need to go back up to 700,000 gallons at some point in the future, that we would be able to do that, and we would not be required to purchase that additional capacity because it was once ours. Where it really comes into play with us is we will get contacts from, say, Cherokee Office of Economic Development. They'll be courting an industrial, light industrial, technology, corporate office style project. They'll get a request from the state of Georgia or Georgia Power, or one of the other utilities that's doing site selection. They'll locate a site. They'll reach out to the entity of that site, and they'll say, do you have capacity for XYZ on water and sewer? If this is removed from us, it's going to make it very difficult for me to have a yes answer. I will then have to go back to Cherokee County Water and Sewer Authority. I'll have to turn around and get approval from their board. We'll have to negotiate rates, and then we'll be able to say yes or no. That project is likely gone before we can make that offer. So that's something that we kind of have to deal with. Additionally, we're in a little bit better position than most are. We have access to 6 billion gallons of water at the reservoir that we can pull from. I just don't have a plant that can pull directly from that at this time. There had been some conversations in the past about maybe Cherokee County Water and Sewerage Authority working with the city of Canton on a water treatment plant. Kind of makes it difficult to have friendly conversations when you pull capacity from the other partner. So I want to make you aware of this situation and let you know that staff's looking into it. We're having conversations. Ultimately, it's a board decision for their board. I would hope that before they make a board decision like that they would reach out to the entities that do have capacity with them and at least seek feedback in a written nature, maybe a resolution of council, letter from the council. But over the next few meetings, I plan to attend their meetings and just find out exactly what's going on and how we can be better engaged in the conversation. I'm hoping it's not a situation where they came to us last week and they're going to vote on it in 2 weeks and it's a done deal. So I did want to make you aware of that. I'm happy to answer any questions on that you may have.
Well, thank you primarily for bringing us that update, and I think it's a very serious matter, and I hope they do reconsider this as they go forward. Again, you mentioned Canton was the parent or the origination of Cherokee County Water Sewerage Authority, and we've worked very, very closely over the years, and going forward, we're going to be required to work together very closely in collaboration for all of our city and county residents and businesses. As you mentioned, it's sort of based on what we're using now, and all those numbers, seem to add up. But again, when major corporations or businesses are approaching us and asking us if we do have that capacity, it is nice to automatically be able to say yes, with certainty. I'd hate to see Canton being reduced. I think, it's over 500,000 gallons a day or more, if my math is correct. And when the county is providing water to counties outside and cities outside of the county, I think Canton, the county seat, should, and the parent of the Water and Sewer Authority, I think we should be given the first priority. And not be reduced, if anything, increased. But anyway, I hope this matter is resolved with the general agreements that we have in place. I'd hate to see it reduced any, even the fact that we're not using it now. We can't guarantee what we'll need in the future, and we have had discussions with the county Water and Sewer Authority about partnering on a future water plan and all. And so again, I think your words are wise of we should continue to collaborate, but in good faith, and good faith requires them honoring commitments that have been made to date. I would like to ask at some point if the Water and Sewer Authority would like to make a presentation to council and just bring us up to, we'd love to invite them to attend and I know, explain what is, going on here, what plans are, especially if there are any significant changes. But we appreciate you until that time, showing up and representing us, and anything council can do to make sure that we have this capacity reserved for our citizens and businesses is greatly appreciated. Any other comments or questions from Mr. Peppers?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
The city of Canton does not have a representative on the board, correct?
That's correct. All of the board members that are on the Water and Sewerage Authority are appointed by the grand jury. There is one representative on the board that represents the municipalities that are part of the water and sewerage system. That's Eric Wilmarth, who's the city manager from Ball Ground. He's also the chair. One of the things that I haven't really said out loud, and I'll say it to you, is, being the county seat, there are certain things that we have to provide to the county that are not always reciprocated. So if they want water at the courthouse, they have to buy it from the city of Canton because they're required to be in the city limits. The only hospital in Cherokee County is in the city of Canton. And if they want to drink water at the Cherokee County Water and Sewerage Authority office, they're actually drinking Canton water because their office is in the middle of Canton. So, you would think, hopefully good heads will prevail. Another situation that I did mention in the meeting is that we currently wholesale water to the city of Waleska. Waleska doesn't produce their own water. They buy from us. They buy from Cherokee County Water and Sewerage Authority. We've never charged Waleska for that capacity. If we have to buy capacity from Cherokee County Water and Sewerage Authority, we may have to charge Waleska for their capacity, which means Waleska's either going to have to pay us or pay them, and there's a ripple effect. It continues to go downhill. But I want you to know about the situation. I think it's important that it be discussed in a public meeting as opposed to a closed-door staff meeting. So,
I couldn't agree more. And again, I hope, as you mentioned, just some obvious examples: courthouse, hospital, both of which entities are growing and expected to expand. Double their size from where they are now in the coming years ahead. And again, it doesn't make a lot of common sense to start reducing our capacity based on what's happening today. And we hope this partnership continues to be mutual and working in our favor of our residents and citizens. But please keep us posted, and we'll look forward to getting updates on this. Any other questions, Mr. Peppers?
a couple of other things while I got a chance. Team member of the month for March was Miss Josepha Hart. She is a records technician in our police department. She's usually one of the first faces you see when you enter the department. She was quite surprised when she was invited over to be the team member of the month. I think she was more surprised because the chief drove her over here and to meet with me, so she may have really been shocked. But Black Publishers Clearinghouse, there was balloons and there was an award, and she had a good time. She has such a positive attitude. She's bilingual, which is very beneficial in the police department and with customer service, and so we were excited to recognize her. I also wanted to recognize a couple of additional staff people. Corporal Courtney Rogers was awarded a scholarship from the Rotary Club as she continues her education. Officer Alex Bacon, who is with us, is currently moving towards deployment. He's going to be doing a 6-month stint overseas, and we are going to be working as an organization and a team to put together some things for him to remind him of home and how much we miss him while he is gone. Public Works Department, they were workhorses last week. We had trees down throughout the city, and we're able to get those cleared and out of the way. I will tell you, we did have some damaged vehicles and homes throughout the city, but Public Works have been working hard to get that stuff cleared. We put out a map. We're trying our best to get to the neighborhoods on the routes as best we can. As people have called in, we've tried to schedule things as well. So it's going to take us a couple of weeks to get all of that cleared, but they've been working very hard. Got 3 employees down at Public Works that just got their learner's permits for CDL. When we work big events like that, having everybody on our team with a CDL makes a big difference because it allows the multiplicity with equipment and going out and handling those things. We're very excited about that. Additionally, we have been working as a staff to start getting prepped for the budget process. That usually kicks off in May, late April and May, as we start working with departments on their budget, and then we will sit down with the council on the budget as well. Right now, from a calendar standpoint, if you'll recall, or for those of you that are new to the process, if we do anything different than a complete rollback neutral, revenue neutral millage rate, we have to do a series of 3 public hearings under the state law. From a scheduling standpoint, it makes it difficult for us because we have to get our millage rate approved and adopted and transmitted to the county before the county approves their millage rate, because our tax assessor collects the city taxes on behalf of the city. So our citizens don't pay 2 tax bills, they have the 1. Additionally, they only file 1 exemption. What we have discussed from a staff level is having the very first public hearing on the millage rate as a hold steady millage rate at the first meeting in June, and then working through the month of June and having our second and third public hearings in July. I haven't heard from any council members a desire to raise the millage rate, so the worst case scenario, as we see it, would be a hold steady. Anything we do from that hold steady all the way down to a complete rollback can be handled in those 3 public hearings. So that's kind of the process that we've talked about from a finance standpoint. That also deals with the fact that you've got the 4th of July holiday and a change of a meeting in there. You've got Georgia Municipal Association conference in there, so we're not rushing to get everything done in July, but we get to spread it out a little bit over time and get some of that transparency and feedback in the budget process. So I wanted to make you aware of that. That's how we will likely roll with the budget process and millage rate for this year. I'm happy to answer any questions on any other items that you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Peppers? Mr. Waterman?
Mr. Peppers, we had a gentleman tonight speak about parking in his neighborhood, and from what I understand, that there have been some, I guess, emails traded over the years on potential solutions. Just wondering if you can address that, just lay out what is possible, what can be done, what the neighborhood can do from an HOA standpoint, and what we as city or police department are able to do.
Sure. So the city already has a traffic calming policy. So when it relates to making any significant changes within a neighborhood on traffic calming that might include speed bumps, changes of intersections to all-way stops, 3-way stops, 2-way stops, implementation of rumble strips, anything like that, we require that the neighborhood, the HOA, reach out and request that, or that the citizens involved in that area, the residents of that area, reach out through the petition process so that the city is aware that that's what is being asked for from that particular neighborhood. We have done the same thing on parking. So basically, when developments go in, now we work with developers to look at areas that should have no parking. A lot of the neighborhoods that were built 15, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, didn't have that review process. We can't really control an individual parking on the street unless we sign the entire street for no parking. Sign it, paint it, enforce it. Well, what happens when somebody has company come over and there's not a spot in the driveway? Where do they park within the neighborhood? So part of the reason why we put it back on the neighborhoods is because we need to know what solution they're looking for on their end as well. In this particular instance, a couple of things based upon comments. The city has no control over bus stops with the school district. I did send a message to Mike McGowan with the school district to ask him specifically if he could tell me why the bus stops were moved. Was it moved because they're just doing one bus stop for the entrance of the neighborhood, which we have in several neighborhoods across the city, or was it based upon the traffic or stops logistics within the neighborhood? So I'll see what I get back on that. Additionally, I've talked with the police chief. We've been doing some additional patrols out there. There have been some notice of violations. A couple of citations. A lot of what we see out there is what we see in other places, which is people parking in the wrong direction. That's a common mistake. People parking in front of a fire hydrant. People who are parking on the corner of a pedestrian crossing. They're blocking a pedestrian crossing sidewalk. That's an option, an issue as well. A lot of the people who are parking out there because they live out there. Some people aren't taking advantage of their driveways or their garages. They're using their garages for things other than cars, and so that's having an impact on that neighborhood. It was brought up about rental property. Unfortunately, the state of Georgia does not allow cities to create a rental property registry, so I could not tell you which properties out there are rental properties versus which properties are non-rental properties unless I pull tax records, and then I can't create a record off of that under state law. So if the residents would like to bring a solution, if the residents would have an HOA meeting and we could have a conversation with the HOA, that might be the option we can put out there. But we have, over at least my 8 years with the city, we've had several instances where neighborhoods have asked for things, and we've tried to keep the process as standard as possible. Diamond Ridge is a great example of one. Probably 6 years ago, there was a request out there to make a couple of the intersections always stops. The neighborhood got together, they went out, and they got basically 100% of the property owners to sign the petition asking for it, and that's what was done. I don't know if the threshold's 100%, but we need to hear from a majority to be able to make those determinations on enforceable things beyond what's in an existing code.
So, I'm sorry. So in this case, let's just assume more than 50% of the occupants are renters, and those homes are owned by a corporation. Then there doesn't seem to be a solution if a HOA requires a majority vote to fill out a petition to approach the city. This is what we want.
I think that sounds like an issue with covenants on the HOA. I mean, they determine what a majority of their membership looks like, not the city. Part of the reason newer neighborhoods have covenants about parking in the street is they have the enforcement that they can back it up because they can actually levy a fine against the resident. Unless it is a no parking area, unless it's signed for no parking, the city cannot enforce parking on the street in neighborhoods.
Our action from a city standpoint will be the blocking of fire hydrants and blocking the access to enter or exit someone's
We can enforce
driveway. That's what we can enforce.
illegal
right now.
parking, correct.
Mr. Peppers, I had a question. So I understand that the city has a traffic colony policy, and I guess I'm thinking about the children that have to walk from the back of this property to the front of this property. I'm thinking about the gentleman that spoke that had health issues. And I'm thinking about myself who had kidney stones last year, and I'm trying to imagine a situation. I couldn't walk, and I can't think of how in the world if an emergency vehicle couldn't access a resident. What are we supposed to do? And I don't know and thank you to the chief. It sounds like there's some surveillance or they're doing some drive-bys to check on that area. But is there anything that can be done from the city's point in terms of access? Because that seems like a little bit of a I don't know, maybe a liability, but in terms of just being able to have public access to get an emergency vehicle back there? Is there anything, is that a code enforcement in violation of any sort if they don't have access to a road?
It is not. And historically, from the fire department, their answer to us has always been, if we need to get a truck through, we will push whatever we need to out of the way to get the truck through.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I do want to document this maybe tomorrow, just the list of options or what's needed for the neighborhood and what the city can actually enforce. Just to, to close the loop with the neighborhood, and hopefully that they can take that back.
And I'm happy to reach out to the HOA management group and just say, here's what we would be looking for. Here's the information that tells us that this is a neighborhood requested activity. What we don't want to do is get into an activity where we're making a decision without taking the neighborhood into account. And that's really the reason why the city wrote the policy the way it was the first time on things like stop signs, speed bumps, and what have you. When you make changes like that, it impacts an entire neighborhood. You can't make decisions based upon 2 or 3 comments that you receive. Now, I understand in this particular situation, some people may not come forward because they're not property owners, but there is a property owner for every property out there. I don't know what their covenant state as it relates to voting, but if there's a rental entity that owns multiple parcels, they can vote as well. It may just be that communication between the HOA. I'm assuming the HOA is getting dues paid. So there's some form of communication between the HOA and the non-homeowner properties. So,
And I kind of, that's where I was leaning towards. If an HOA is collecting dues from these residents, be it a homeowner or a renter, they got to enforce safety. So it sounds like this is more of an HOA issue than, because if the hands are tied with the city on what we're allowed to enforce, the only option is the HOA?
well, I mean, you as council could tell staff, go out and make this particular road no parking. But you got to decide which roads you want, which side of the road you want. Do you want a situation where you only allow parking on one side of the road? Now you got half the residents the parking's on their side of the road in front of their homes as opposed to the other side. I mean, there's a lot of issues that go into picking and choosing where no parking zones are at. At this point, our best solution as a city is enforcement, illegal parking. We would be looking for the homeowners association, the neighborhood, to help bring a solution back to us that we can.
I may suggest we certainly begin with enforcement of things we do have control over, and perhaps Mr. Peppers ask you to reach out to the HOA and ask them, maybe invite them to a meeting, and the ward council members in that ward could attend that and see what can be accomplished at that point. So, sound good? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Peppers. And again, I wanted to congratulate Ms. Hart on her in recognition, and Corporal Rogers as well, and Officer Bacon. We appreciate your service to the city, and we thank you for your service to our country. We wish you Godspeed and to be safe, and we look forward to your safe return home. And second, the appreciation for our Public Works Department. They've been working hard. It's amazing what they've done in just a few days from the storms and high winds last week. And I know they have a lot of more work to do, but they're out there working very hard every day. So just, again, if you see them out working and can, stop by and thank those hardworking men and women of our Public Works Department. So just double checking, we have no council introduced items. For my report, I do have one appointment to make this evening, and that is Mr. Jim Ledford to the Board of Appeals. Mr. Ledford has served on our Planning and Zoning Commission in the past. He is a wonderful resident of Jarvis Street. He's here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Leff, for attending. I think formerly employed in the construction industry. I think he's renovated a beautiful historic home on Jarvis Street, and he'll be a great addition to the Board of Appeals. So appreciate his willingness to serve. I believe Mr. Johnson had some appointments to make as well.
Yes, so I have two. A previous appointment by former Councilwoman Ms. Joellen Wilson. I'd like to appoint Teresa Ramsey to the Canton Tourism Board and Mr. Jared Tush to the Sustainability Board. And Mr. Tush actually is on the board, but given his background and passion for the community and what he did for his line of work, he's a great addition, I believe, to remain on this board. So again, Teresa Ramsey for the Canton Tourism Board and Jared Tush for the Sustainability Board.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any additional appointments this evening? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I double-checked with Ms. Fortner before the meeting, and I believe these appointments will actually complete all of our standard boards and commissions will be 100% full, which is exciting. And we will get those updated and posted on the city website. But great work to council getting these positions filled. So again, I've appointed Mr. Jim Leffer to the Board of Appeals. Councilor Johnson is reappointing Jared Tush to the Sustainability Commission, and Teresa Ramsey being reappointed to the Tourism Board. Any questions? Do we have a second for those appointments? Second. Okay. A second for those appointments. Any further discussion? All in favor of those appointments, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Those members are appointed. So thank you again to those citizens who are willing to help us complete our roadmap for success and do the good work that the city does and keep moving forward. So that's all I have this evening, and so I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss real estate and litigation.
Motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss real estate and litigation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.